Welcome back to Keeping Up with Cleopatra, Part 4. When we finished Part 3, we had Cleopatra and Caesarion, her child by Julius Caesar. They've returned to Egypt. In Rome, Mark Antony is trying to avenge Julius Caesar's death, and Octavian is Julius Caesar's heir. And the assassins, Brutus and Cassius and their followers, have escaped to the east, where Cassius has a lot of connections because he had previously served there in the military. So last time we had the assassination of Julius Caesar, and Cleopatra had tried to get her child by Caesar, Caesarion, recognised as the heir, but he wasn't recognised legally, and instead Octavian inherits Caesar's wealth, his estates, his supporters, and the military forces that were following him. Octavian was Caesar's adopted son, and he was actually a great-nephew of Caesar. Cleopatra returns to Egypt with Caesarion, and within a few months, her brother Ptolemy XIV, who she was technically co-ruler with, he just quietly dies, and she makes Caesarion her co-ruler with her. But Caesarion is 3 years old, so that really means that she is now in charge of Egypt. Back in Rome, we get the formation of the Second Triumvirate. And this is a group of 3 men who were given the job of stabilizing Rome and hunting down and bringing justice to Caesar's assassins. And that really means killing them. That's a polite way of saying it. These 3 men, 2 of them we are already familiar with. Octavian, the heir. Mark Antony, who has served under Julius Caesar and is very loyal to him. However, he also tends to put his foot in things. And the third one is Marcus Lepidus, who had been a general under Caesar. Now, Mark Antony and Octavian, from the start, do not get along. Mark Antony has served under Caesar, he's been very loyal to him, and he sees himself as being the successor. However, Octavian is the heir. He's smart, he's a good politician, and he has inherited everything legally. So they do not get along. And so the triumvirate divides up the Roman Republic, and they each take on a region which is going to be theirs to manage. So we have them basically divided up. Octavian is down in northern Africa. Mark Antony and Lepidus are back in Europe. However, we have a couple of other players as well. Sextus Pompey is one of the sons of Pompey from the first triumvirate, and he is hanging out in Sardinia. Brutus and Cassius have escaped across to the east, to Turkey, and Cleopatra is trying to build her power base in Egypt. Now, Cleopatra then ends up in a bit of a difficult position. Cassius is in Turkey, and he appeals to her for aid, for support. But in Syria, which is very close to Egypt, the proconsul, so the governor of that region, is a man called Dolabella, who had been a supporter of Caesar. And Cleopatra makes an excuse to Cassius because she doesn't want to annoy him. She wants to keep him on her side, but obviously her support is going to the man who supported Caesar. She sends 4 legions to him, but on the way, Cassius captures them, and he now knows that she had been lying. She's trying to stay in his good books, but secretly she was supporting his opposition. So he is not happy with her. So Dolabella is in Syria over here. So he is very close to Cleopatra geographically, and he's also a long-term supporter of Caesar. Now, to make things worse for Cleopatra, Cyprus had been returned to Egypt by Julius Caesar, and Serapion was her governor there. And he defects to Cassius, provides him with ships and soldiers. So he has left her and gone to Cassius. And at this point, Cleopatra becomes involved more directly. She gets some ships and soldiers and she sails off to Greece to support Mark Antony and Octavian, who are trying to hunt down Cassius here. However, having got together her support for them, they actually get delayed in a storm and they arrive after all the fighting. So she has provided support, it looks good, but she didn't actually have to risk anything in the end because they arrived when the fighting had finished. So, she had taken her ships to Greece here, but in between we have battles between Mark Antony, Octavian on the Roman side, and Brutus and Cassius over in Turkey. So Antony manages to defeat Cassius and Brutus in Greece at the Battle of Philippi. They commit suicide when they are defeated, which is a very common thing for the leaders of the military to do at that time. And this increases Antony's power. Of the triumvirate, he is the one who managed to avenge Caesar's death. This is very good for him, That was part of the reason the triumvirate was formed. So the triumvirate now redivides the territories because they no longer have Brutus and Cassius in the east. They're going to take that as Roman territories. So Octavian gets west, Mark Antony gets the east, and Lepidus gets the northern Africa. So he now has this region here, but Octavian has all of this, and Mark Antony has all of this. And we can see here that now he's in much closer proximity to Cleopatra. He sets up his headquarters at Tarsus in Anatolia, and he summons Cleopatra for a meeting because we have to always remember Egypt is the source of a lot of the grain throughout the Mediterranean, and Everybody wants that grain. So Cleopatra is going to go off to have this meeting with Mark Antony. She has to show that she's loyal to him and to Rome, because when her governor in Cyprus, Serapion, had defected to support Cassius, she has to make it very obvious that was nothing to do with her, that she is against Brutus and Cassius, and therefore she's supporting Mark Antony, Octavian, and Rome. So he is over here in Tarsus, and she is going to travel up to there. The city of Tarsus still has a gate which is referred to as Cleopatra's Gate. At this time, most cities were walled, and that they had a wall all around them with usually 4 gates in them, one in each direction. So, like most of the cities, Tarsus had a wall with, in this case, 3 gates, and she entered by the port gate because she arrived by boat. The port gate is still there. It's actually a long way inland now, because in the intervening 2,000 years, what's happened is that the shoreline has changed, that the river coming down to the sea has deposited more and more silt and mud, and so the land has actually changed dramatically. So it's now a long way inland. It was also probably rebuilt in the Middle Ages, but it is still referred to as Cleopatra's Gate. And it's kind of just in the middle of the road, around about there. So, 41 BC, Cleopatra has gone to meet up with Mark Antony. And this goes very nicely for her, because they form a political and romantic alliance. And she invites him to come to Egypt with her. And he comes to Egypt, and there are stories that they had feasts, they have parties, they have boat trips in these luxurious boats along the Nile. And it's seen as being very decadent. And he returns some of the territories back to her that had been Egyptian territories but then had been taken by Rome. The next year, he has to leave Egypt and go to Syria. And she gives him 200 ships, which is supporting him and as a payment for those territories that were returned to her. So Syria we have here, and so he is going up here. While he's away, she gives birth to twins, and she names them Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. They're a boy and a little girl. So we notice the significance of their names. They've got the sun and the moon. The boy is named Alexander after Alexander the Great, which is saying that she wants him to be a great leader like Alexander the Great, but it's also linking the fact that she is one of the Ptolemies. They were established in Egypt by Alexander the Great. And the little girl is named Cleopatra after her. And unlike Julius Caesar, Mark Antony recognizes them as his children and acknowledges them. So at this point, things are looking much better for Cleopatra. After Julius Caesar's death, she was in an uncertain position. However, she is now in a romantic relationship with one of the three most politically strong men in the Roman Republic. He's increased her territories. He's giving her a lot of support. She's got 2 children by him, and he is recognizing that. So she is in a much better position. However, despite the fact that Mark Antony was recognizing her children as his, he's still married to Fulvia, who is back in Rome. And she is a noblewoman from a well-established family. So she is not going to take this situation well, is she? And at this point, we're going to finish for now. And what we're going to look at next is what Fulvia did. Thank you.